Utah State. That's the new game announcement. That's the new kickoff time that's been revealed for the Trojans. And so it's a late one, but it's the first Big Ten Network game. So that's a landmark right there. So you won't have to be living through the Pac-12 Network nightmare for that. So that's good. A lot of USC fans, though, might be grumbling about, oh, God, another 8 p.m. start. Like, we already have the Rutgers Friday night special in late October at 8. Another one? And I understand that. Like, 8 o'clock is not the preferred time. You'll want to be drinking up that Southern California sunshine, or at least, have that late afternoon, early evening, 4:30, 5 o'clock sweet spot. But just for week 2, not talking about any other week of the season, just week 2, just September 7, that week, it's great that USC gets an 8 p.m. kickoff. Why? Because let's remember, LSU game is a Sunday, September 1st, Labor Day weekend. And Mark, I know you know this as a guy who studies college football, knows the sport inside out. You remember it. I remember it. Virginia Tech losing a week 2 game to I think it was James Madison, supposed to be the ultimate cupcake, easy peasy, but Virginia Tech played a Monday night Labor Day game. The Hokies were roasted and toasted. They didn't have enough turnaround time. They were spent. So when you play a Sunday or a Monday game on Labor Day weekend and you do schedule a week 2 game, which if you can, you should avoid it. That should be an off week. But if you do have to play on a short week at the beginning of the season, when the weather is generally hot around the country, 8 o'clock p.m. is exactly when you want that follow-up game after playing on a Sunday night in week 1 after LSU. Because that LSU game, win or lose, it's going to take a lot out of the Trojans. You want that late game. Like, if this was a 12:30 kick, woo, that I would be just a little pinch nervous about everything, but 8 o'clock, this is exactly the right week to have it. So for any USC fans who are understandably upset about, oh, we already have 2 8 p.m. games on our schedule at the Coliseum this season. All right, you can complain about the Rutgers one, fine by me, but Utah State, it's a godsend. It's exactly what USC needs for that week 2 slot, given that USC's playing on a short week.
Well, it's going to be your first game as our welcome to the Big Ten Network. So like you said, at least it's not the Pac-12 Network. Let's face it, it's Rutgers and it's Utah State. We didn't expect to be on Big Noon with those kind of matchups. And so they're going to pick which ones are big games. I can promise you when SC plays schools like Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska, etc., that we're going to get slotted in those better times. So you guys, it's just part of the product. If we're going to be playing the Utah States, and the Rutgers games, those games are going to be buried probably on the Big Ten Network, and they want that night slot, right? They didn't pay all those millions of dollars in order to have that money go to waste. And now they have that West Coast game, and they are going to use it. And I'd much rather be slotted, for the games against Utah State and Rutgers at that slot, and then have our big games on, during the prime hours.
Yes, the Big Ten Network, prior to, of course, acquiring the 4 teams from the West Coast, was relegated to 3 time slots during a Saturday. And now they can extend it to that 4th time slot to the West Coast and feature those under the radar, less significant games, but still money makers for the network, still significant to their coffers. And so, yes, they want to take advantage of any time there's going to be a West Coast team involved that they can corner at home that's not playing a marquee game and be able to take advantage. And this is exactly one of those, as is the Rutgers game.
Yeah. So, hey, one of the things we're doing at Trojans Wire, it's Big Ten summer. We're going to be educating about the Big Ten and introducing everybody to the new conference that USC is about to join. So, here's a little piece of that puzzle, and Mark just alluded to it. So that's perfect material for me to just kind of offer a segue here. The USC-Utah State game on September 7th, it's part of a quadruple header on Big Ten Network. Not sure what the early game is, but Michigan State-Maryland is the 3:30 game. Ohio State has a cupcake game at 7:30 Eastern, and then USC at 8. So yeah, Big Ten Network can stack 4 games on a lot of Saturdays now. And you know that either Oregon or Washington, UCLA or USC, one of those 4 is going to be in a regular rotation. Like Big Ten Network now gets to show games at 10:30, 11, 11:30 Eastern time. That is 3.5 hours of new real estate where they're not just repeating the Big Ten football post-game show. They now have more game action, and that's more time. That's more time off for their on-air personalities. They don't have to do the Big Ten post-game show until the middle of the night. So I'm like, they just get to watch more football. I'm sure that like Dave Revson and Jerry DiNardo and all the people there at BTN, I'm sure they're loving this. So being able to have a quadruple header. And this, of course, is going to extend into basketball as well. Big BTN, you're home for late night college basketball. It's, Bill Walton's not going to be around to see it, but, there's going to be an 11 p.m., a midnight Eastern basketball game on BTN. Now, regularly, like, we're getting a sense of what the media landscape is. The big BTN now gets all this extra game inventory, football, hoops, everything else multiplied. Like this is just so much more live event programming, and that's part of the value that the Big Ten is getting with these 4 new West Coast schools.
And for us at the Voice of College Football, of course, we will do USC post game in some manner, and we will make those announcements later in the summer. But for me personally, that does a call-in show after the Eastern time zone primetime game, so roughly 11:30 at night, the football fan in me wants to delay that to 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and wants to watch the late games. I don't like when I've got to just out of the corner of my eye watch USC, Arizona State, and the like that they played last year, a lot of those late games, because I want to watch those games. But for the health of the network, it's best that I get on here by 11:30 Eastern time, and I've got to just kind of catch up on the USCs and UCLAs of the world and everything that's going on the West Coast. But I love late night. I look at the schedule each week, and I love even when it can go beyond that, and you can catch like a Hawaii game that kicks off at more like 11:30 and extends it to like 3 in the morning. Oh, it's just more football, Absolutely.
And I mean, one of the great pleasures that we no longer have is having a Hawaii game on the first Saturday of December, late at night. Like that used to be like one of my ultimate comfort food moments. We've all argued about the bowl championship series or the college football playoff, but you know what? We have a Hawaii game in beautiful sunshine to round out that first Saturday of December. It was I would get misty-eyed, because that was like the last pure regular season game of the year, and they've discontinued that. I wish they'd bring it back, because like that was one of the ultimate palate cleansers for any college football fan over the season.
And before Tim reels us back in and pounds his fist and gets us back to USC, which we will do in about 20 seconds, I will add to that, Matt, as a guy that loves college football and all the conferences, but beyond, even after that final Thanksgiving weekend, which it typically was in the Big Ten, there was the likes of Michigan State, Wisconsin, Michigan. All 3 of those come to mind in the 80s and 90s that ventured out to Hawaii to play a game after the rivalry game, a regular season game. Exactly. It was just phenomenal. Loved it.
It was a non-bowl bowl. It was a non-bowl bowl. That's basically what it was. All right. Before we do get back to USC, just because we're talking schedules and because we're also talking about the death of the Pac-12, just a brief note on the other Pac-12 schools that are heading out of the conference. I'm not sure if you noticed this, Mark, but in the Big 12 schedule release, Arizona is playing Kansas State early in the season. So Arizona is going to be in the Big 12. And Arizona's going to be playing Kansas State, but it's a non-conference game. And as well as I do, Mark, North Carolina and Wake Forest in the past decade, they have twice played a non-conference game. It did not count in the ACC standings. It's because the ACC schedule rotation didn't regularly have them playing each other. So they just decided to play a non-conference game that does not count in the league standings. So Arizona, Kansas State is a non-conference game this season. Also, Utah and Baylor, back end of a home and home. That's not a Big 12 conference game. It's also a non-conference game. And the final plot twist involving a Pac-12 school that's moving out, Utah at Arizona State is a Friday night game, October 11. You know, it's going to be Pac-12 after dark, except we're all going to watch that game and notice a Big 12 logo on the field. It's going to be so weird to have Big 12 after dark, or as I also call it, Pac-12 after death this season. It's gonna take some getting used to. All right, so that's the scheduling stuff with various Pac-12 teams.